Hello and welcome in. Thank you very much for joining us today on this opportunity to talk more about the University of Nebraska. And the first question I'd like to come to you with is, this month marks the first year, or excuse me, this month is marking to where you have become president for 1 year. Is it everything that you have expected, or how has it been going so far?
Well, certainly I do get asked that question a lot, and I usually answer it by saying it's everything I've expected and a lot more. This is my 12th year as a Nebraskan by choice. Came here in very early 2014, initially as the chancellor of the University of Nebraska Medical Center. I've served as the chancellor of our metropolitan campus, UNO, and I've served for several years, 3 years, as the provost and executive vice president of the system. So I've really come to know Nebraska, its people, the legislature, the philanthropists, the large and small businesses, etc. But this role as the 9th president of the university system is quite different. And it's at a time that there's real challenge out there as it relates to the perceptions of the value, the efficiency, and the effectiveness of higher education across our country. And so the opportunity to engage very solidly with all of our faculty and staff and students on all of our statewide campuses, the opportunity to have even a tighter relationship with the legislature and the governor's office, to crisscross the state, Hanky, as we're doing together right now here in Norfolk, has been a real privilege, and not without challenge, but also full of opportunity.
So I was reading recently on an article, and that you guys had given an approval for a 5% increase on tuition and asked to cut the additional $20 million. So I got to ask, what is the reason for that, and what does that do for the school?
Well, the university system is like your home and my home, and what I mean by that is we deal with the inflationary costs of life. We have to buy the same dozen eggs, put gas in our cars, maintain the lighting and heating and cooling of our classrooms. The only difference is we have about 900 buildings on dozens of brick and mortar sites, literally across border to border of the state of Nebraska. And so we had a very modest inflationary-based ask of the state legislature that we thought we could balance the budget with a modest tuition increase. We were instructed by the state fiscal officers to request 3.5% increase, and that was approved by the Board of Regents a year ago, August, almost 11 months ago. And that's how we went into the legislative cycle. But unfortunately, given budgetary constraints, and I really fully understand the challenges that the legislature and that the governors have faced given the economy of the state, we didn't get anywhere near that. We got under 1%, in 0.625 to be exact, in the first year of the budget. And so we took a more significant tuition increase to the Board of Regents, and as you just said, 5% was approved. Now that is more than I ever really hoped to do, and as a first-generation student who had to work my way through college and med school, by the way, take out student loans and depend on scholarship support, any tuition increase is really painful because I know how hard it is for working families, how hard it is for the students. A large percentage of our students either have full-time or part-time jobs just to get through college. And so this was a very, very hard decision to make. However, there are a couple of points about it that I think the audience might value knowing. One is that we are really very highly focused on the quality of the education. And we're not going to do anything where the value of a University of Nebraska degree is not going to be sustained, because we want to be sure that every one of our graduates, whether it's from our nursing school here in Norfolk, the engineering school in Lincoln, or the allied health program in Kearney, that when that degree is granted, that future employers know that that really means something in terms of the quality of the education and the experience, etc. And the other thing is that we have a number of scholarship programs which are actually tuition remissions, and the difference between a scholarship and a remission is a scholarship means it's real money, a remission means we discount the tuition. And So we have a program called Nebraska Promise, which provides free attendance, complete waiver of tuition to students who have families or individually are at or below $65,000 of adjusted income a year. Now, that's a very large percentage of our students who, no matter what we do to set the tuition rates, in-state or out-state tuition rates, have no impact of that because they literally are able to attend class and graduate with no tuition costs. Now, in addition to that, we have multiple other scholarship programs. We just announced a little over a year ago what we call Presidential Scholars, which is a program for students with perfect ACT scores and perfect SAT scores who are able to attend the University of Nebraska. It's a full ride program, meaning tuition, fees, room and board, and a financial stipend that goes with it. And so we do everything we can to try to keep it affordable, but it would have been a lot nicer if we had a better balance between the state investment in the future of higher education and what we're asking our families and students to do, and for us to write off. And you know, a very big part of that, as you mentioned, is we're going to be reducing the budget by well over $20 million. I mean, those are real jobs that are going to have to go away. 83% of our entire budget is personnel, salary and benefits, and when we're taking millions, tens of millions of dollars out of the budget, those are jobs that are just unfortunately going to have to go away. And you know, we've been trimming the budget, at least, you know, I'm in my 12th year now. We have trimmed the budget every year that I've been here. I think thus far, not counting this year, we've taken $138 million of real dollars out of the budget, and now we're going to have to take another 25 to 28 out of the budget. So that's, you know, that's cutting through the skin and the fat down through the meat and into the bone.
When you're taking all that, and you said that, you know, you're trimming so much money, how much of that is like affecting the college to keep continuing to be successful?
Well, we're going to do everything we can, and we're absolutely focused on this, that we're going to have minimum academic impact. That is to say, I would rather close a program that has little or no enrollment in it because students don't want to take the major or the courses than reduce the quality broadly across the institution. So we're going to try to be much more vertical and much more strategic in the way we take these dollars out, as opposed to do what has historically been done, which is referred to as peanut butter cutting, you know, which is 1 millimeter deep and 1 mile wide, and everybody just digs a little deeper into their pocket. Because that does, the peanut butter cutting, erodes the quality of all of our programs and doesn't do anything to enhance access. And furthermore, we have to be able to have enough dry powder to invest in the future. And the only way we're going to do that is by tightening the belt and looking at programs and services that we don't really need anymore. So I'm guessing, for instance, that artificial intelligence and some of the new software that's available for accounting will reduce some of our back-of-the-house accounting and financial management costs. We have a new software product that manages procurement, purchasing for us, which automates a lot of it, makes it faster. You know, we went from a time that we were 3 to 6 months for reimbursement for travel down to a matter of days, with dollars being, you know, transferred directly into people's bank accounts. I mean, those are real improvements that are crowd pleasers that actually save us money and make us more efficient.
So going and talking about artificial intelligence, do you feel as if that's something that is going to be, I mean, you're taking away, let's put it quite frankly, jobs of, you know, people, human working, and now you're taking it to digital. How much more are you going to keep pushing that forward?
Well, you know, I was at a meeting not too long ago where the vice president of Microsoft, who's in charge of their generative AI software, known as Copilot, I believe, was asked that exact question. And his answer was, we're probably going to be creating more jobs that will use artificial intelligence than we're going to be taking them away. So we've actually built one of the very first undergraduate degree programs in artificial intelligence. In the August Board of Regents meeting, we're going to be proposing to the board a new master's degree in artificial intelligence. So we are very focused on building the workforce on how to use AI. AI, like any computer software, is just a tool in the tool chest to allow us to be more efficient, more effective. So the idea will be to use the workforce that we have in ways that are more efficient and effective.
Has there been any pushback from students or even faculty with talking about the budget cuts and, kind of implementing more of the AI, of saying that this isn't a good idea? Have you kind of dealt with any of that?
I would say there's always concern about anything that's new. I've done it so much of this kind of stuff over the years. It's just what I call a bell curve. So there's one part of that, what we call the early adopters, love it, bring it on, got to have it. There's the other part all the way over here that says never happen, over my dead body. And then there's the middle part that says let me test it out, let me see if it works, etc. Students are all in the bring it on phase. They know that this is a tool that they're going to have in their tool chest for a long time to come. And just like, they're so savvy in using software that this is just another tool, which is why we built the majors and the concentrations in these areas, to be sure that we're literally handing out degrees in the use of artificial intelligence. But, are there going to be staff members and faculty members that feel threatened? I'm sure there will be, but we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they can use it successfully as a tool. When we started using augmented and virtual reality as a teaching tool at the University of Nebraska Medical Center, there were a lot of faculty that were very concerned about whether it would be effective because, we have a very high ranking and rating of the quality of the education program, board pass rates and things like that. So there was concern about that. There was concern about, well, if you do this all in artificial intelligence and virtual reality, does that mean I don't have a job anymore? Well, what they found out is that if they use that, they can be more effective. They can get higher test performance, better student satisfaction scores, and no one's going to lose their job.
Moving on, with the league institutions having funding taken away from them by the Trump administration, how much additional pressure does that, create for you and the university to align ideologically with Trump administration while also trying to meet their needs, going forward?
Well, certainly the last 6 months has been full of challenge. And, the issues around trust and efficacy questions of higher education have been building over decades. So I don't attribute this all to the single administration, although obviously things are changing and have changed at a really accelerated pace. And these changes are widely across the country. While the elite private institutions have been filling the newspapers and the airwaves across our country, we are very much subject to the same changes. So, we're looking at federal changes in research funding through the National Institutes of Health and the National Science Foundation. And, this is all rapidly changing in the sense that a new directive comes out one day, and then 2 weeks later there's a court restraining order, and a month after that it's been changed to another focus. But we track once a week what the financial implications are for us, and we're estimating somewhere between $230 and $350 million of loss of research funding next year. So there's about $50 or $60 million that is already in the last fiscal year, and we're on a July 1st fiscal year. So for the last fiscal year, we lost about $60 million of research funding. And that is independent of what happens to what's caused the indirect cost recovery rates, which, as you may know, have been cut from 50, for in our case, about 53 to 55% of every research dollar, down to 15%. And your audience might be interested to know what an indirect cost recovery rate is and why it's so important. When a research scientist applies for a research grant from the federal government, they are paid to do that research, which means if they need test tubes, if they need chemicals, if they need laboratory animals, if they need technician support, that is all paid for by their grant. It does not pay for heating, lighting, security. It does not pay for computer infrastructure, routers, and switches. It doesn't pay for public safety. It doesn't pay for all the compliance requirements and the reporting requirements they have. It doesn't pay for the library and research services that we have to provide in order to compete for these grants. So all of those other things are considered the indirect components of research, and that's what indirect research funding pays for. So those are measured, quantified for every university every 2 years. They're audited every 2 years, and a rate is calculated. So our rate, for instance, has been about 55%. So for every dollar that pays for research to be done, 55 cents is paid for the heating and the cooling and the security and everything else that goes with it. And so taking that down from 55% to 15% on $700 million of research is a big hit.
Last question. Obviously, we are just months away from the new year coming up, which is hard to believe, but are there anything when it comes to goals, or what does the next academic year look like?
Well, we've been very involved in strategic planning for the last year. We've established 5 what we call foundational pillars that relate to extraordinary education, extraordinary research, science and discovery, extraordinary partnerships and collaboration, extraordinary teamwork, extraordinary cultural evolution of the university, and then finally extraordinary stewardship, efficiencies, and effectiveness of the university. We have implemented that strategic plan down to multiple levels, including the campuses, the colleges, even down to the departmental levels, so that every department knows what their piece of that is, what the metrics are, etc. We're also, we haven't talked at all about this, but we're living in a new world of intercollegiate athletics with the settlement of the so-called House case, which occurred in the latter half of June. As of July 1st, all the name, image, and likeness regulations are in place, and we are actively paying student athletes, as are, all of the certainly A4, Power 4 conferences across the country. And we're in a brave new world about how that's going to look, what the regulatory aspects will be, whether all the universities are going to, quote, play by the rules, unquote, or not, and we certainly are. And we're uniquely positioned in that we are one of the very few programs on the Lincoln campus that will allow us to do that without having to ask for incremental student fees, which some campuses have done, state appropriation. The state of Florida just appropriated over $20 million to pay for NIL payments, or to have to take academic dollars, meaning tuition dollars, or state academic dollars to offset the cost of the athletics programs. But at the same time, I just can't imagine if we have 2 or 3 student athletes sitting on the sidelines waiting to play, and one is earning, $10,000, and one is earning $20,000, and one is earning $30,000, and they're sitting there chatting about that with each other, getting ready to get on the field, whether that's going to produce the same kind of teamwork that we've enjoyed. Because what has made Husker athletics and all athletic programs across the country is an understanding that there's no I in the word team, and that the strength comes from the collaboration and having each other's back and really bringing out the best in each other's performance. And by the way, not just on the field, but in the classroom and in the research laboratory as well. And so it's going to be a brave new world. I have a lot of trust in our athletic directors and coaches to do the best they can do, but that also means that that trust has to be in the rest of the conferences, particularly in the Power 4 conferences. And so more to come on that. Maybe we should follow up in the future.
All right, well, we appreciate your time, and thank you, Dr. Gold, for coming to speak with us, all things University of Nebraska, and we look to talk more in the future.
Anytime. Let's do it.